Welcome to Kiwi's Classroom. Today, I wanted to do a bit of research together. A few months ago, my boss and I were talking at work and wondering why some people are extroverted and some are introverted. For reference, both of us are extremely extroverted, but our families are introverted. I additionally would say that most of my friends are introverted as well, and my husband is the most introverted man I've ever met. I think a lot of people misunderstand what the differences between introverted and extroverted are, so we'll start there. When I was a kid, I used to think that extroverted meant that you were outgoing and introverted meant that you were shy, so when year after year I took those school-mandated personality tests and my extroversion numbers were consistently off the charts, I always thought the tests were broken or wrong or that I messed up. Back then, I was painfully shy, and I could basically only talk to my two friends. I think that a lot of people fall into this same trap. A few years back, I asked my friends if they identified as extroverted or introverted, and a lot said that they were both because they like being around people, but they're shy. I do know that ambiverts exist, but I think this answer proves that there's a larger misunderstanding. Additionally, I think a lot of the articles and books out there put out a pretty harmful rhetoric that extroverts are loud, stupid, impulsive brutes, and that introverts are awkward, passive, moody loners. I really hoped that I had found a gem on accident at the library when I found a book about succeeding as an introvert when the author said that introverts and extroverts were equally great. But then she went on to say how introverts were more loyal and creative while extroverts are drama queens who don't have the capability to work without breaks to talk to people. This is really frustrating, especially as an extrovert myself. I really do think that both extroverts and introverts are fantastic in their own ways, and we don't need to put all these horribly negative labels on one group or the other in order to lift up the opposite side. So let's take a look at what makes both sides tick. People who are extroverted gain their energy by being around other people. A lot of people confuse this as being outgoing, when in reality you can have a very shy person still get their energy from being around people. Being alone is draining for them and can lead to depression. Extroverts tend to pursue the future, being excitable and lively. They also have more brain activity when organizing and interpreting messages from their senses. What I thought was especially interesting was that there was some evidence that pointed towards extroverts having more gray matter in brain areas that control fear. Meanwhile, introverts have more gray matter in places that control behavior. Introverts, contrary to popular belief, can be perfectly confident in social situations. It's just draining to them. They gain their energy by being alone, and going long periods without this alone time can lead to heightened levels of stress and anxiety. There's also a lot of talk about introverts and sensitivity. Sensitivity can be physical, emotional, or both. Introversion, shyness, and sensitivity are often lumped together because they're internalizing traits. However, an introvert does not need to be shy or sensitive to be an introvert. Introverts tend to lean more into the present moment, according to some studies, and are reserved and calm. Additionally, they seem to have more brain activity when solving problems and recalling events. One study I was really grateful to read dispelled the widely touted rhetoric that introverts were smart while extroverts were idiots. It stated that in their findings, there was no discernible link between intelligence and where the person was on the introversion and extroversion scale. Everyone just has their own way of thinking and interacting with the world, which I think is great. Additionally, to answer the question that set me on this path to begin with, it seems like whether you're introverted or extroverted is strongly linked to heredity. I also reached out to followers in Instagram and in our Discord to see what people identified as well as what they thought their strengths and struggles were because of it. The common responses for introverts were that they felt that they could relate to others, knew how to create spaces to recharge, and that they were great at listening and focusing on others and on their work. They struggled with balancing time seeing loved ones and taking time to recharge, meeting new people and friends and dating, and being overwhelmed by big social events. For extroverts, on the plus side, the common answers were being great at making friends and new contacts, talking to anyone without getting socialed out, and felt that they had a large support system that they could turn to. On the struggle side, there was a lot of sentiment about feeling lonely, especially when trying to respect the energy of loved ones, anxiety about bothering people with wanting to talk or hang out, and balancing your partner's need for space with your own need for connection. Truly, in most of the literature I've read, I wonder if the authors have ever actually given people in the opposite category a chance. As an extrovert, I don't think I have ever met another extrovert who pressured an introvert to join in on something that we were going to do. The invitation was extended, and if the answer was no, then that was that. This tired example of how extroverts are, to me, always seems more like an issue of being a bad friend than being an extrovert. A friend of mine is extremely introverted, but they're a huge fan of raves and hanging out at cons. It just takes them a while to recharge after this. My husband, again, the most introverted introvert I've ever met, speaks out about things actually way better than I do. Often I let him take the reins when speaking to hotel staff to check in or getting attention of restaurant workers to pay the bill, because asking to be helped makes me absolutely miserable, even as an extrovert. The fact of the matter is, even with studies and people's experience, there's so much that goes into how a person functions, even outside of introversion and extroversion. Neurodiversity, trauma, how you were raised, and much more play a part in how someone interacts with the world. It's important to get to know how any given person functions, and base how you interact with them accordingly with love and understanding for how different we all are. I hope you enjoyed this rabbit hole deep dive with me, and for now, I hope you have a great night.